Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Modern Open in Louisville, part of the SCG Tour. I am here with the SCG Tour Spotlight featuring Jeff Hoogland. Another top 8. That's 3 for 3 season 1.
All the
for
modern
those
ones.
keeping track
We
at
got
home.
them.
And you've done it all with Kiki Chord.
Yep.
And most importantly, you did it again this time in a World of Eldrazi. Eldrazi winner, as they're calling it. You went 6-1 through the Swiss against the Eldrazi deck.
Or smorgasbord of Eldrazi decks.
How did you do it?
Well, the big thing that we needed to change in the deck from the iterations I'd been playing previously was that you have to have a way to not lose to the card disadvantage that Reality Smasher provides. And there were 2 different ways you can do that. First is that you can kill it with a creature. The second is that you can have some kind of outlet that you gain a benefit from discarding. So we have 2 cards that allow us to circumvent this, a third in the sideboard. Big Game Hunter fills both of these roles. We can Chord for it for only 3 and kill Reality Smasher with a triggered ability so we don't have to discard. We can also use Obstinate Baloth when we draw it to discard it to the triggered ability. There were a couple of times this weekend where they attack, you path the Smasher in combat, and then have a surprise 4/4 blocker that gains you life.
Right. Yeah, we saw a lot of people kind of come into the weekend with ways to kill Reality Smasher. Did a deck tech this weekend with Danny West, who was just going all in on the discard creatures while you kill it. And that strategy, while it looks comical, is actually effective.
Yep, and I had a lot of people ask like why we're not playing Smiter and why we're not playing Wilt Leaf Liege in that slot. And I just feel like, in addition to Big Game Hunter, we don't need a second one of him. Baloth, the extra life gain, I think is really very relevant against the Eldrazi deck because often you just need that one more turn to close the game, you know, to combo or to like hit him in the air again with your resto, etc.
Right, so we've seen this deck from you before, obviously. 3 top 8s, as we mentioned. You've got the Birds, Wall of Root, Mana situation, along with Courser of Crufix. And then you just have a bunch of value creatures between Eternal Witness, Voice of Resurgence,
Pia Grindelar,
Resto Angel, and then of course, you have always the combo win with Kiki and Resto Angel, which is what is so powerful in your deck of value that you can just close the game very quickly.
Definitely, and I think that's the most important thing when you're playing the Kiki deck is to recognize that you're a mid-range creature deck that can combo, not a combo deck that can mid-range.
Other cards, you've got 62 cards in the main deck this week. We got a couple ones floating around between Lone Missionary, Revel Arc, Orzhov Pontiff, Spellskite, all these cards applicable in the most important matches in Modern. So how are you winning, all these games against Eldrazi? What is the secret? Obviously, you have a bunch of value in creatures, but how are you winning them for the most part?
The most important thing to recognize about the matchup is that it's not one matchup. Your sideboarding differs between the blue-white and the blue-red and the colorless. Different cards are important in different matchups. For instance, against the variations that have Skyspawner, Pia Grindelar is much better, whereas against the colorless variation, it really doesn't do a whole lot. Voice of Resurgence and Wall of Roots are very important against all of the decks. Wall of Roots is powerful because it just gets to block 4 power creatures, whether they be Mimics or Thought-Knot Seers. Voice of Resurgence allows them to not be able to interact with you on your turn, and then its token threatens to be able to block their giant creatures and then allow you to attack through them and actually close the game.
Right, that's one thing we saw this weekend, whether it was the Mimics or the Endless ones, the early ones that they play, future turns can just be a 2/2 or a 2/1, and you can actually just brawl with them with your big creatures.
Correct. And we also have, in addition to the 3 Wall of Roots, we also have the 3 Wall of Omens. So like their little endless ones and their Mimics without triggers just aren't very good against this deck because we're always blocking profitably.
Take us through the sideboard and how you kind of deal with the different Eldrazi matchups. I mean, you don't have to do all of them, of course, but there were 6 or 7 different Eldrazi decks here this weekend.
Yep, so the most important thing that we bring in from the sideboard is we bring in 5 additional removal spells. We effectively become kind of a Jund-esque control deck that can combo. We have 2 copies of Dismember and 2 copies of Lightning Helix, and then a second creature that can get through Reality Smasher's trigger in Shriekmaw. I've both evoked and hardcast that card and corded for it and always been happy with the result.
Okay. Other sideboard cards, you have a smattering of cards that can help you out against non-Eldrazi matchups. Sin Collector, Rhetoric of Law.
Eidolon of Rhetoric.
Yep. Combining the cards.
An extra Reclamation Stage. Phyrexian Revoker is actually really good against the blue-white Eldrazi deck because Eldrazi Displacer is very powerful against you. You can also do things like set it on Drowner of Hope when that card's being annoying and tapping your creatures, and then resto it later to reset it to something else. So. The most important thing I like to touch on in the Eldrazi matchup is that I don't like boarding in the Fulminator mages. I think if the game is going long, even if they're potentially activating their Eye of Ugin multiple times, we can still just go bigger and grind with that. And Fulminator mage, like taking a turn off to interact with their mana when they could just have another Eye or Temple in their hand, you're not affecting the board in a profitable way when they're getting on the board very quickly.
Right, we saw a lot of people think Merfolk was the answer because they have so many ways to mess with the mana between Spreading Seas or Seas Claim. That just turned out to not be enough.
Correct.
Or fast enough.
Yeah, you always want to be asking yourself the question, how am I affecting the board this turn? How am I not getting behind? Because your deck is capable with most of your draws of keeping up with what they're doing. So long as your removal spells are going in the right things, then you hit the right mix of walls and voices.
So are you looking to go away from Fulminator Mage, or is it still worth its spot if Tron kind of resurges?
I always have respect for Tron and Burn in the decks that I build. In fact, the card I almost cut to get down to 61 at the start of this tournament was the Lone Missionary, and then it won me the match on camera against Burn when I played it, because, just like having this one card throws off the percentages in other matchups, but like it single-handedly won me that match, so it was worth its slot. Okay.
Going forward, what are the changes, or are you happy with the configuration?
The one big thing I want to change, because people have asked about the deck for GP Detroit coming up, is that I moved away from playing 2 Kiki for a while because there weren't any aggressive decks featuring Path to Exile that you needed 2 to beat. But with the Eldrazi deck moving towards blue-white, Path plus Thought-Knot Seer often means they're able to get your Kiki permanently exiled. So I think I want a second Kiki possibly in the main deck, or even just in the sideboard to board in against the Thought-Knot Seer decks.
All right, well, you seem to have it figured out. You have Modern under your thumb. You have Eldrazi seem to be under control. A 3rd top 8 this season. We wish you the best of luck in the top 8. Thanks for watching the video, and enjoy the rest of the series here for the SCG Tour Spotlight.